Good afternoon and welcome to Saturday Sesh. My name is Trey Reckling. I'm the founder and director of Academy of Cannabis Science. And we're very pleased to have you back, our Canna fam, our students, former students, allies, etc. We're particularly happy to invite you or to have you here today because we have Tahir Johnson and John Dockery from Trenton, New Jersey, who are making all kind of news. You guys are getting super press nationwide, not just in the New Jersey area, about your efforts, about what you're doing, about how you're continuing to open up the Northeast, because we know it's still kind of fledgling going on down there or up there. Um, but you all are starting with quite some momentum. So I want to turn to you first, John, if you don't mind introducing yourself and tell us who you are.
John Dockery. I'm the CEO of Simply Pure Downtown Trenton. I'm a social equity applicant. I have a micro license, class 5 retail license. I should be opening hopefully in June of this year.
June. Awesome. And like we talked, there's a lot of boxes to check between now and June when you're dealing with regulations. So we're going to get to that. So glad to have you on, John.
Thank you.
And Tahir Johnson, how you doing? Do you mind introducing yourself?
I'm good. Hello, everybody. My name is Tahir Johnson, CEO of Simply Pure Trenton. We are an adult use cannabis dispensary opening up in Ewing Township, New Jersey. John and I have been friends since preschool. So we're both opening up in our hometown, a couple minutes from each other. I mean, like, what, 5, less than 10 for sure, maybe like 7-minute drive from each other. But it's been amazing for us to just be on this journey here in New Jersey together. We won 2 of the first 11 dispensary licenses that the state put out last year. It's actually just like about a year ago now that we applied for our license. I'm hoping to hopefully get final approval for my license at the next meeting on April 13th. We're rolling and trying to get this show on the road and get our dispensaries open. So it's a pleasure to be here speaking to y'all.
No, so glad to have both of you on. Like I said, you've gotten excellent press. You've gotten some great coverage and nothing like free advertisement for a business coming online to let everybody know to get excited before you even open your doors. And so that's fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the cannabis industry? Some people have experience that predates retail, right? It's hard to put on a resume, but it certainly helped inform their practice, their life. Can you tell us a little bit how you got into this?
I'll go first. I'm a legacy guy, what you would consider. I've kind of sold cannabis since high school. So this is, hopefully I'll be one of the first legacy to legal guys in the state. So I've been selling cannabis since about high school. So that's around like 2000. And right. That's my experience goes all the way back from there. So
that's awesome. And so often, that profession was talked about in whispers, right? But serving a real need in the communities, right? Helping people get their medicine even before we were calling it medicine. But as we know, all cannabis use is medical use, really. Because people use it to sleep, to relax, take the edge off for the day. So, John, are you excited to be able to present and sell in a whole different sort of way and be able to offer options like you probably never had an idea or had access to before?
Absolutely. The big thing is that I can help the community. I can give back to the community in ways that I couldn't before, So, and just the positive feedback that I'm getting from the community, from, friends that are still on the legacy side that want to cross over too, just to show them that it's possible.
Absolutely. And we know the war on drugs has not only been a colossal failure, but it was never a war on drugs. It was a war on people, particularly communities of color. And I know, Tahir, you've been very outspoken about your experience with the law growing up, and I think I heard in an interview you said growing up you were pulled over by the police between 60 and 70 times, and maybe not weed related, but just
yeah. Right, just life, yeah. And looking at my transcript, when I looked at the title, I had to do something, and then like just in New Jersey alone, it was like 60, 70 times, right? So when you think like when people talk about the war on drugs, it's something that impacts the whole community. It impacts everybody, right? Because not only the people that are selling cannabis right there with the legacy market, but just being in the community, being a cannabis consumer, the way we were, when you talk about those statistics where they say African Americans are 4 times more likely to be impacted, you can actually see it in the numbers where you live. Like Johnny said, like everybody we know almost that we grow up with has been like arrested for cannabis, because it's just like if you're around, right, like you get pulled over. And New Jersey is like the most of one of the highest offenders for this, right? It's like anytime we were young, just riding in a car, you get pulled over, you get searched. It was just a part of our life growing up. So thankfully, we've been able to, now turn this into an actual business. And so for me, it was something that I actually started looking at 5 years ago, in 2018. I was previously working in finance. So it first started in 2013, because I was working in Morgan Stanley and I saw a GW Pharma go public. Because I'm like, wait a second, it's like they had a cannabis pharmaceutical drug, and that was the first time I made the connection. I'm like, me and my friends were at home getting arrested for it, all this stuff in our community, and now there's like a pharmaceutical publicly traded companies that are launching. So that was the first time I connected and like realized that this is going to be like a different thing and like an industry. But at that time, I'm like, okay, I had just started working in finance. I'm the only one in my family to go to college. I wasn't quite ready to jump out there then. Because like when you think about us in our communities, these are real risks that you have, like you take, right? You struggle so hard to make it in your community. Like I walked away from a 6-figure job, right? That was really difficult, to be honest. And I never even thought that I would have, right? To pursue this. But when I started looking at cannabis, right, you think about the statistics. Last year, the industry made $26 billion in sales, and African Americans own less than 2% of the industry. So I started looking at it from the finance side. In 2018, I read about Hope Wiseman, who was the youngest Black woman in the country to own a dispensary, and she's in Maryland, where I live. And so I started, like, Maryland had the new legal market, and I was like telling my dad, actually, he has fibromyalgia. And he was on like prednisone and all these medications. And I'm like, Dad, I think you should try medical cannabis. And he's like, son, I've been smoking weed since the 60s, man. There's nothing you can tell me about this. But, coming from Brother Paul probably relates to this, a brother his age, he didn't believe in going to get a license. He thought it was the system trying to bust you. Like, they're going, you're going to get the license, you get the medical card just for them to set you up. So I'm like, Dad, if you get your medical card, I'll get it with you. So that was how I ended up like getting involved in the medical industry and just learning everything. So that like shortly after in 2018, I started working at a medical dispensary in Maryland part-time, and quit my job in finance and went to do it full-time. And from there, working at the dispensary, I had the opportunity to get heavily involved in advocacy. So in 2019, I started working at the National Cannabis Industry Association and built their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And then in 2021, I got to move over to bigger organizations, and I had a dual role at the U.S. Cannabis Council, which was like leading cannabis policy and programs for most of the multi-state operators in the country. And then I was also leading social equity at the Marijuana Policy Project, so helping to lead like in states where we were developing cannabis policy. So that gave me a really close understanding of the industry, the regulations, the market. Network, knowing the people. So then by the time New Jersey legalized cannabis, and we had the opportunity, I had already been heavily involved, had so much experience that gave us the opportunity to, kind of be at a completely different place, right? When we applied this time. And, John, like I said, it's been my boy forever. And when I was looking to apply for the license, he was hitting me up like, yo, I want to, do this too. And I was just like, yo, you're not going to get down with me, and you're going to get your own. And so, we've been on this journey doing it, and thankfully we both won. So it's a blessing.
No, it's amazing, and kudos to you, because I've following your story, and I know there's no real path, right? There's no, hey, take this, increasingly there is. You can get a degree and that sort of thing at a few schools. And that's where we got in because there wasn't a lot of opportunity for people to get professional guidance and training in this industry. But you got to kind of carve it out yourself and find a way. And I imagine your family, did you get some pushback on the decision to leave that job? I mean, in addition to all the doubts you might have had about is this the right move, what kind of family feedback did you get about that?
Well, it's interesting. Like my mom and dad were definitely supportive. Like it was funny that, and it just timing wise, it was the week of National Cannabis Festival, and that was like one of my first things where I was like pitching a business idea in my head, and my mom came down, and I told her that I was quitting. Like I think I had quit either like my job that day or that week or something like that, and like told my mom, so I got to like experience it all together, and that's been one of the cool things. Like we've kind of been on this like as a family together from the beginning. So, I mean, they've seen how hard I've worked, how much I've put into it. And thankfully, like I said, for me, this has been a long journey. So I've kind of been like, I've had a lot of, I'll say, success, even prior to getting the license. So people have kind of been able to see it. One of the best parts is that I think for me, like I've been sharing my story the entire time. So people have kind of been seeing me from the beginning in 2018. Like when I first started, I was a guy in a suit, like trying to come into cannabis. But all the way up until now, like, even from the failure, right? Because I applied for licenses in 2019 when I quit the job and didn't get them. So people can see that, like the learning, like I said, just it's a long journey. That's what I'll say. If you want to be in the cannabis business, it's definitely not an easy thing. And like people see all the press and stuff now, but it's definitely not an overnight success.
For sure, for sure. How about you, John? How about when you made the announcement to your family? I know a lot of this education starts at home, right? We got to talk to our families about doing this and what's it mean to the family. So what kind of response did you get when you said, "Hey, look, this is I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this under a license."
Well, I kind of have like the opposite experience with, because when I told my friends like, hey, I'm gonna apply for a license, a lot of my friends told me like, man, they're not giving nobody like us a license, you know what I mean? Like that's not for us, So, it was mixed feelings because, sometimes that does seep into your head that like, yo, this, I'll apply and then, I won't get one, I'll see other people get one, but it won't be for me, But, my family, they were supportive, you know what I mean? Especially my mom. She, of course, she wanted me to leave the legacy side alone because, it's some danger in the legacy. It's danger in anything, So,
Right.
I got her full support and family full support. It was just like a lot of my friends were feeling like it wasn't something that was for us,
But yeah, how beautiful is that story? Even before the doors open, you're breaking down other doors, right?
Right.
And changing people's perspective and changing the hope they got in themselves to say, hey, no, this is for us. This is, as you all know, this is one of the first times in many people's lifetime there has been a new industry like this where everybody should have an opportunity to start on the same line. Like we say, the cannabis community is the most diverse community you can belong in. We just got to make sure the industry reflects that. So, and I know a lot of states do a lot of talking. There's a lot of posturing about equity partnerships, about equity access. But too often there's a whole lot of talking and a little bit of action, or that comes after the fact. They're like, well, let's give out these licenses first, and then we'll talk about it. Well, that's too late, right? The conversations have to start on the front. So this is a big question, but what is some advice you both would have to other people in the BIPOC community said, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur like these guys. I want to do exactly that, but in my hometown. What kind of advice? I know it's a big question, but I imagine you've gotten that question too. What are some things that you encourage people to think about or to do?
Me personally, I'll say, put the work in, even when I started, I started doing my own research. I started taking classes. at the local community college. Now, mind you, I've never taken any other classes at the local community college, but that was a class, there was like the introduction to cannabis. I took that class. So, knowledge is key, so I would say get yourself knowledgeable, and then I would say get to know your city council, get to know your mayor, get to know the people that make these laws, and get to know them well, and because that'll help you in the long run.
And that's such a good point, developing relationships, and letting them get to know you, because as we know, a lot of politics is reactionary, right? Politicians aren't going to stick their neck out often for a cause unless they've got a vested interest, or it's a reactionary thing. Hey, it's something that's got to happen now on this. And so that advice is huge, to let people get to know you, and then you can share some of that education that they're not going out seeking without your help. So how about you, Tahir? What sort of things do you tell people who pitch you that question?
Yeah, I would actually echo everything John said, like education, experience, and networking in general, like not only with your local politicians, but with people in the industry, attending industry events, joining industry organizations, like just becoming as much immersed in the culture and business of cannabis as you can, I think will go a long way. Like people like this that are taking this class, right? Like, even like every little thing that you can do that helps to build help to build your experience, because the interesting thing, right? Like you don't know who that person that you're on a class with or that you're a bud tender with is going to be like 5 years from now, like, right? Like literally, like I think of myself as a perfect example. Like I was a bud tender in the dispensary in 2019, and today, we are where we are. So, I mean, just the regular principles in life, like treat people the way you want to be treated and build relationships with everybody, value them, because everybody has something to offer. So I would say that's important, because reputation is important too, because it comes back around as you're trying to build this business in this industry. Hopefully, like I've had the opportunity to literally like interact with thousands of people in the industry, right? And so it's like, I would hope that all of those people would speak positively of me. And like, so reputation is everything. I would say guard it with your life and business with anything you do.
Yeah, another great point, because you've met a lot of people in the industry, both of you, and not everybody's a good player. Not everybody's somebody you would want to get into business with, much less maybe spend lunch with, right? And I've worked for some brands, and it's just, it can be very male dominated. It can feel like very much like a bro culture, very fraternity like, just vibes that don't fit me, might fit somebody else. And we meet a lot of people who might be really interested or even kind of thirsty to get in this industry and are willing to make some compromises about the people around them. So I'm glad you said that, because your reputation is critical, and who you associate yourself with in this industry is important. So make sure you're not hanging with folks that are gonna tar your industry, that are gonna affect your reputation, because it's a big industry, but it's small enough, and people will speak about you positively or negatively. So give them as much opportunity to speak on the pro side as possible. A lot of people are interested in getting in the industry. The number you gave out to hear about the billions of dollars that are being made every year is real. And so, so many people would like to make a jump like you both are making, but might have no idea about the complexity of that. Just access to capital is huge, but then regulation is huge. Could you all talk a little bit about how regulation kind of rules your life when you're at a stage like this, when you're trying to get the doors open and trying to get through all the paperwork? What's something people might not understand about that process?
Well, I'll start on this one. Well, I'll say when you start talking about regulations, we're talking about at multiple levels, right? We're talking about not only going through the state licensing program, the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission, but we're dealing with a high level of municipal regulations as well. Like we've had to go through our town zoning board. Actually, before we did that, you have to go through a couple levels. We had to go through the actual cannabis board. We had to go through the city council. We had to go through the plan zoning board. So you're juggling all these things, having to do regulations. Like for example, our logo had to meet not only the requirements of the commission, but the town has ordinances around what can be in them. So you're levels. And you can't have a violation, right? And when we get open, we're managing using software to manage compliances. Regulations and compliance is probably the most important part of the business. As a matter of fact, that's really the business we're in. Everything we're in trying to get open is like trying to figure out how to put all these things in place to be compliant.
Sure. John, we talked about it briefly before we came on today, but it's a lot to think about, I imagine.
Yeah, it is. Compliance, like Tahir says, compliance is everything, compliance is what makes you and what breaks you. So you have to have everything covered, from, SOPs, to every single thing you can think of. Even security wise, once we're open, you have to walk in with armed security. You have to leave with armed security. It has to be at least when 3 people to close at night that leave out together. So it's actually like 4 of you guys with armed security walking out at night together. So those are just the rules, and you have to comply with all these rules and regulations.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it's not just the rules; it's personal safety issues, which are just have to be handled. We went through a rash of robberies here, and a lot of areas do. So we wish you well as you put your SOPs in place to protect yourselves and protect your staff and help people know, hey, we're not a soft target here. That's not going to happen here. We're going to keep our eyes open and all that sort of thing. So here, going back to you talking about relationships, and I guess this question is to both of you. You all, to kind of point out the importance of relationships, you all are partnered with Wanda James, correct? With Simply Pure?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll say that speaks to the value of maintaining relationships, because
Oh no.
You're breaking up just a little bit. And while he's getting his settings back, if you're not familiar, if you don't know Wanda James, you need to look her up.
In 2019, I was at NCIA. Never had. Can you hear me now?
Okay, you're back now, I think.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was saying that I actually met Wanda all the way back in 2019. And when we met, I had no intentions of, opening a dispensary or partnering with her. I was just working in advocacy. So, we built a friendship then and got to hang out and spend time together. And so as we just decided to open the dispensary, one of the things that's important to me, and one of the principles that John and I both grew up with, being raised in African People's Action School, is cooperative economics. So, when we decided that we wanted to open up our own dispensary rather than try to create our own brand, we saw the value in aligning ourselves with somebody like her. Again, the first African-American legal dispensary owner in the country. So not only is Simply Pure a trusted brand that people know, but we get to, lean on her and her experience, as we work together, because, we carry that name that she's worked so hard to build. So of course she's going to, we're going to have her full support.
That's awesome. And the amount of people that you'll introduce the Simply Pure brand to that aren't familiar yet, or might have already only read about it but never experienced it, is inspiring. How the way that I imagine she helped you now as you're getting your name out there, but the way you're going to be able to help her and help the brand is pretty amazing as well. I want to turn to our, go ahead. I want to turn to our students and make sure I give space. It's the bottom of the hour, and always like to turn to our folks on the line, see what questions you might have for our guests. Because you all know me.
Hey, this is Fleetus. Is it okay if I can interject for a minute with some questions and concerns and thoughts that all you fine people have been kicking around for those that are, putting out the information here on this particular session. I really
Yeah,
appreciate that. By the way, thank you. And thanks for standing up and doing what you're doing, because a lot of people are even afraid to do this. I mean, the other powers that be on the other side of the coin, they look at this video, they see our names, and then they Google us to try to figure out who we are, or what, all that kind of stuff, and how are we related. And I mean, are we on the FBI's most wanted kind of thing, and there's people that are afraid to even get involved because of that issue. I mean, a different ramification. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off track. So, but I just wanted to throw this out there. When you guys talk, and you got me starting to think about products, especially for businesses. The main line is putting the product out there, and you want a clean, good, safe product. So that's a legal issue. That's safer than buying it off the black market, off the street, where you don't know which kind of dirt's in it, or rat poison, or things like that. So there's a big issue there politically to make it legal. I mean, in supporting it because of that safety for the individual. The other thing is the different products I've been seeing a lot on Facebook lately. They're pushing out for hemp. I think it's called the Hemp Project or something. And they put it out there, and they're showing all the positive aspects, not necessarily for the THC aspect, for the enjoyment, and getting just mellow out, man. You need to mellow, but the aspect of using it for equipment in building homes, fire resistance, and all the multifaceted versatility of that hemp grows faster than wood, so we don't have to cut down all these trees. We can use hemp for that and develop it to a product that's viable. So what I don't see here in Vegas or other places in California, when I've gone back to visit a little bit, I don't see the stores carry any promotional products of that nature. I'm thinking that if you can on your business, and that's something you've done. I mean, working in a store, you have premium space. So I understand that. I'm not arguing that. But if there's a way to put in that kind of connection point of contact for other businesses, and promoting them, saying, hey, look, we're not just a head shop. We're also a product that believes in an industry that saves a lot of money. It's saving a lot of energy, and creates jobs and versatility, that kind of stuff. So I've been trying to talk with them about that. The legal aspects are real pain. Each state has their own problem because it's not recognized yet by the federal government, so that's creating a lot of issues there. But I know there's some coalitions out there, such as the Academy of Cannabis, that really puts out a support branch, and he probably has an FYI list of other natures dealing with legal aspects and ramifications of who you can try to contact in support for your own individual needs, for where you're located, on how to solve issues that might be a problem. Insurance cost, keeping that down, it's got to be a nightmare. How do you get a company to insure you for your business when they won't do that? I mean, that's a pain. That kind of stuff. Looking with your local political aspects of it, and promotion. I just want to throw that out there, but you got me thinking on it,
for
and
sure.
I appreciate that, and thank you. And I'll
for sure. Yeah, it's complex. I can speak to just a part of that. In Washington State, you're not allowed to put any hemp products in a retail cannabis store. It's strictly what we call here a 502, which is the name of the law. It was a 502 issue, and so typically you're not selling hemp products or hemp-based products in a cannabis store. And like you said, the floor space is very limited on top of that. So yeah, there's a finite amount of things that a cannabis retailer can take on. Well, there's just so much to take on to begin with, right? Just with everything that you got going on anyway. Looks like Tahir dropped out. He's coming back in. But John, here, let me go. Let me ask you, what we talk about all the challenges. We know, this continues to be demonized, and I don't know, we all picked a tough industry to be part of, right? And so you got to be passionate, you got to be steadfast, and kind of keep your head up. What keeps you positive in this work? Like, because all of us could go get a job that doesn't have these barriers or these challenges. What keeps your head up?
Well, for one, I don't know if I'm on mute. For one, I'm passionate. I'm passionate about cannabis. I was always the neighborhood connoisseur. I was the guy that, if you had good bud, they knew that I knew what good bud was. So, I was always passionate about cannabis. But now just to be on the other side, I mean, just to open the doors up for other people like me, has become my passion, I guess now. Because, you know, even now, I haven't gotten to the finish line, but you know, some people probably still feel like, it ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? It's, you know, so just to show them that it can work, you know, and show them give them another narrative on it.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's tough, and you got to have your anchors that keep you steady on those tough days, because you will have some tough days.
You have a lot of tough days.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a roller coaster ride, literally. I
Mhm.
mean, it's been days that I've been like on level 2000, and then there's days that I feel like I'm on level 10, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and feel like you know, sometimes a day will happen, you're like, gosh, we're back here again, or I'm having the same conversation with somebody else, to try to just normalize this thing that should be normal, or
absolutely.
talk to people about, hey, you know, it's not in the scope of things, it's not a very dangerous substance. You know, the most dangerous activity related to weed is interaction with the law, right?
Right.
We know, you know, law enforcement is the most dangerous intercept of the cannabis business, before it was a business, and continuing to be so. So, what other comments or questions do you all have?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So before I forget, I do want to know if you have like 5 minutes after this to kind of talk about what I was asking about.
Sure.
But my question is, so what are like the most important things to keep in mind when starting a business in the industry, or like what goes into being a CEO in the industry?
That's a big
Sure.
question.
Yeah, so I'll say first with starting a business in cannabis, I think it's keeping in mind that it's a business like everything else, right? So I think that's marketing, that's having your financial house in order. You know, I think one of the most
You're breaking up some. See, it looks like you're on a bandwidth issue. I wonder if you turn off your camera, if we could get your audio good.
okay, so is it better now that my camera's off?
Yeah, we got a freeze frame of you, but your audio is coming through. There you go. And yeah, now your audio is coming through good, I think.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, I think one of the most important things of being a CEO is remembering that you're a leader. And as a leader, you have to have a plan. And so having a plan and working your plan and being able to lead and inspire others is one of the most important things. And I think something that John mentioned that I think you have to take away. You can't get too high on the highs, too low on the lows. You know, kind of keep an even keel, if you will, throughout everything. So that way you can be able to just always have a level head. Because like I said, you're going to have good days and bad days, but no matter what it is, you have to show up and you have to make it happen. You know, and it's one step in front of the other. Sometimes you don't see the progress, but I always remember this saying, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? You know, you take that one little bite until all of a sudden you see that you ate the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm smiling. I use that phrase a lot, because there are a lot of elephants to be eaten in this industry. Just the uphill climbs, right? Just the things that you're like, gosh, if we were selling grass seed, you know, like for a yard, nobody would
Million
be on us,
events.
right? We lost you a little bit.
Being businesses like gathering stones, and like they couldn't have done it unless they had a team. So you have to have teamwork.
Absolutely. And back to your first point is keep in mind it's a business, right? Too many people, and we've seen too many people say, "Oh, I'm so passionate about cannabis. I love weed. It's changed my life. I'm gonna run this business," but they don't have any business experience. And then they try to do everything by themselves, you know, to your point to hear about, hey, we're a team, and they try to be their own graphic designer, their own marketer, their own everything. And sometimes you got to do that because that's where the money is, right? Like you only got money to hire so many people, and so you're gonna switch hats a lot. But you got to understand when you can afford people with expertise, lean on those people so you can get back to doing the job you need to be doing. Breon, Miss Corbray, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. Would you mind? I don't think you got to introduce yourself at the beginning, and so I screwed up. Do you mind
Yeah,
introducing
good.
yourself and then asking your question?
Yeah, my name is Breon Corbray, and so I was the first African American to open up a medical marijuana store here in Washington State
Awesome.
last week because the feds and the state partnered together. They came through and they kicked all African Americans out of the weed industry here in Washington State. So we've been fighting, and I literally just put in my application for a weed license last week through our social equity program that took us, 3 years of fighting to get to this point. I had a $4.5 million a year business, and they just didn't want Black people in the business. And they tried to deny it at first, but of course we found emails and all kinds of stuff to prove that they were wrong, that they literally did this. And so, you got to watch out, wherever you are in America as an African American man, opening up these restaurants, opening up these weed stores, you got to watch out because it's a new industry. And just, I'm married to a white woman, but it's white America doesn't want us to get into this game because it creates generational wealth, right? And so when you think about, 10 years of them being able to be in this business here in Washington State, and they took a $4.5 million a year business from me. That's over, $45 million of generational wealth that was taken. So, I just wanted to let you know, just, be careful because, like, even though now that we even had the federal feds say here, we're not messing with cannabis anymore, weed anymore. But as an African-American man, getting ready to open up a weed store myself personally, I'm just weary because I've been through this once, right? I'm just where I was legal with everything that you could possibly have from the state. Only thing that I didn't see at the very, very tiny at the bottom that you have to have this huge magnifying glass to see is the one that just says except for Black people at the very bottom of the contract.
And so let me ask you, I'd love to follow up after the call. If you don't, if you want to private message me your email, if you're willing to, I'd love to follow up
sure.
and get to know you a little bit. So are you talking about you had a business and what was we had a very robust medical cannabis industry here in Washington that was pretty much kind of had its knees cut out from underneath it when 502 came on because it was all the hype to get. If you're not part of the state and missed that part of the news, but rec came on and medical patients just kind of got left behind and lots of stores got closed up. Is that the system you're talking about?
Well, I got taken out before that even happened.
Really?
So I got taken out in 2012, at the very beginning of 2012.
Gotcha.
Because again, name of my store was called The Game. And it was Greenpeace Alternative Medicine and Education. And we had our nonprofit set up. We had our for-profit set up. We had our everything but the state, the city. You got to remember, even at that time, the Mayor McGinn was saying, you guys should open up these stores as he smoked on his pipe, right? So it made you feel that you were safe to open up these stores. And then they had the Cole memo out and all that kind of stuff, right? So it made you feel as if you were safe. But, they had that federal prosecutor, Jenny Durkin, and she don't like Black folks. So if the prosecutor don't like Black folks, none of that matters. They come and get you.
Yeah, it's a big conversation. Like it's a lot more than we're going to get into today. I do want to take that opportunity to hear, could you tell us a little bit about the Cannabis Diversity Project? Because part of battling all this institutional racism that exists that keeps people from having and gaining gaining wealth while other people do, you know, part of it starts with realizing it's going on, and education is just such a huge part. So do you mind schooling us a little bit on what the Cannabis Diversity Project is?
Absolutely. So the Cannabis Diversity Report is my podcast that I started in 2019. One of the goals in it, and what I've always felt is, when it comes to people being able to achieve things, being able to see somebody that looks like you achieve those things goes a long way. So the goal of the podcast was to highlight all different types of minority cannabis pioneers and leaders that are working in all different parts of the industry. So some of them were cannabis business owners or executives or people in ancillary industries like attorneys or accountants, so that people that wanted to get into the industry could hear the blueprint of how somebody did it, and telling their story. So it's so many people out, it's so crazy because I'll hear so many people talk to me and say like, hey, I'm in the industry now, I'm doing this. And like your podcast was the first thing I heard, or like my first resource. So it's just been amazing how far, the podcast is gone. And I haven't probably done it in about a year or so, but we'll be coming back with some new episodes soon.
Great, and sorry I misspoke. I said project instead of report. So Cannabis Diversity Report, it's great, you all. There are, gosh, you got dozens and dozens of episodes. Like you've already got a library of listening in there. So if you're not already subscribed, we encourage you to do that. And a super opportunity for really deep dives on some meaningful conversations. I've learned a lot, or am learning a lot as I'm diving into the library you already got. So thanks for creating that.
For sure. And at the time, I really thought it was important because, I think that now we see where a lot more people are focused on diversity and having it in the industry. But at the time, right, like I was at NCIA, and like, to be honest, I was at an organization, I was traveling all over the country, and every panel I saw was on cannabis, and all I saw was a bunch of white people. And it was almost like we didn't exist. So I wanted to have a platform to, really be like, show everybody that, that you don't get to see, because there's amazing experts out here, right? When you see this Black dispensary owner, this Black accountant, this Black attorney, this Black executive that's actually working inside the MSOs, right? It inspires people to say, I can do this. And, it wasn't just all Black, not just all Black folks, women, Asian folks, right? Like, like all the people that don't, that we don't get the spotlight, right? It's such a, I think with all the lack of diversity in the industry, there is so much diversity, if that makes sense. And the more we highlight it, the more we foster it, and the more diverse it will become, and people can feel seen and heard, and that'll give more people just a platform. So like I said, it's always been a labor of love. And when I have some more time, I'm going to do it again.
No, and I know, I've heard you say multiple times in your podcast and other interviews, the importance of showing up, even if it feels awkward, even if you don't see other people in the room that look like you, to be there so that other people will see you showing up, not just for your own edification and what you learned, but be an example for other people. Say, no, we belong here too.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, thanks for doing that, because the education, I think, is no matter how much money you'll go through, how much money you make in the stores, and how much product you sell, I believe the education stuff that you all are doing and will do is even more valuable, right? Because
can I say something?
Please.
I produce shows, right? And I have a game show, and it's called Cannabis Trivia. And do you know, I've shot probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes. And do you know, we have yet to really have a winner? And a winner is, out of 9 questions, getting 6 questions right. So Americans, people in America, they smoke a lot of weed, but they don't know jack.
Well, true, right? I mean, because so many of us grew up here. If I could give an example, I was in a retail store, and this older man came in, and he's looking around, his first time in the store, and I said, "Can I help you find something?" Because I was there as an educator working with staff, and he said, "I'm looking for that brown weed like we used to get." I said, and he's looking around. I said, well, I said, what you're seeing is the product of when we have an opportunity not to hide it, but to put it under its best condition and grow it and let it be what it wants to be. This is what it looks like. I said, so you got no seeds, minimal stems, quality tested product. And he listened to me kind of go on for a while. And he said, but you don't have any of that brown weed. That's what he wanted. That's what he knew. And that was old school. Like that was,
Yeah.
you go back to what you like and what's home. And, but to point out, the need for the education, because until you taste something different, everything, what tastes like home. So.
And by the way, Tahir, see, we have a world-class podcast studio. So if you ever want to do it, let me know. We can hook up. We can link up to Zoom. We can do all kinds of stuff. So just let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I come back through Washington, man. I went there. I came to Seattle about a year ago, May last year. But it was nice, man. I got to do it again.
Yeah, technology. You don't have to be in Seattle. We can hook you up through Zoom.
That's true too, man. Zoom like we're on now for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, we're certainly glad that you all chose to spend some time with us today. I know as business owners, as CEOs running this, trying to get your doors open in a short amount of time. I know it's been a long launch, but I mean, short amount of time coming up till you're opening your doors now, that time is money and it's probably your most valuable commodity. So we appreciate you spending the time with us today to share your passion, to share what's on your mind. And we're really grateful for that.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson, for even inviting me.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
And it's a pleasure to meet all of y'all. And I was going to say, we'd love to stay connected or anything. If, feel free to, reach out. I'm on all the social media stuff. LinkedIn is just my name. And then, like I said, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff is Todd Diddy. And Simply Pure Trenton is it's everywhere on all the platforms.
It is. You all are doing a great marketing job. So keep that up. We wish you all the success there. Stay safe. Keep teaching people. Thanks for spending time with us today. And we'll wish you all a very good Saturday, and we'll hope to see you back next time we do this.